Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, and I am looking so forward to talking about this movie, Schlapp. Okay, but we're going to play the trailer first.
On the day that he was inaugurated, the Washington Post had an article on impeaching him.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States.
They had an absolute legitimate meltdown.
If you try to change a system that big, the system fights back.
The story behind the biggest election takeover in history.
We're only now being able to finally confirm exactly how this worked.
Mark Zuckerberg and his wife are donating more money to local governments ahead of the election. $100 million on top of a $300 million gift.
The most money any individual has ever spent to win a presidential campaign in the history of our country.
I actually became infuriated that someone had allowed Zuckerberg to tip the scale.
The election was bought way before Election Day.
They stole it fair and square. They changed the voting rules in the middle of the game.
A nation divided.
This was the greatest billionaire assault on election integrity we've ever seen.
A billionaire-funded plot against the president.
Do you believe that they used the COVID emergency as an excuse to pull this partisan voter turnout operation?
Am I allowed to give you a one-word answer? Yes.
It was really a partial takeover of the election system.
I don't think we have to blame China or voting machines. I think we can look straight in the eye of Mark Zuckerberg, and that's why Joe Biden won.
That's what this was. A corrupt, Democratic voter turnout operation.
You had them putting their own personnel in to actually run the election in places.
You had an entire Democratic Party petrified that Joe Biden was going to be outspent, outfoxed by Trump.
Rigged.
It was a rigged election. People have to find out what happened.
So our friends Jason Meath and producer David Bossie, who is also the president of Citizens United, put together this great movie, Rigged, the Zuckerberg-funded plot to defeat Donald Trump. And joining us now is, yes, the producer, which is so weird for me to call David Bossie producer, but he is that too, in addition to wearing a lot of hats. David Bossie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
David, this story, the more you know, the more you just want to get sick to your stomach. It's just a disgusting perversion of how a democratic election is supposed to go. At what point do you remember first reading or hearing about this nefarious plot to have this huge amount of outside money affect the election?
You know, we pay attention, all of us pay close attention to what's going on in American politics. You know, it's funny. You know, I'm out here banging the drum about what essentially was all of this dark money that he was run through these 501c3s, these nonprofits, what are supposed to be nonpartisan operations. And I'm the guy who did the Citizens United case, right? So there's a little bit, it's kind of funny for me to be against dark money, even though that's what the left's nomenclature is. It's really unbelievable that Mark Zuckerberg, totally off the books, no FEC requirements, nothing. He ran $400 million in the last 4 or 5 months of the campaign, and no one knew it. No one saw it coming. And when I heard about it, I was flabbergasted. And my staff actually, guys, just uncovered this stuff in the 990s of one of the organizations, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, which just came out in January, just 3 short months ago. So this is all brand new, fresh information. And you know that because the mainstream media covers it so much.
Yeah, right.
Well, you know, there's word that the Democrats and even some Republicans say we shouldn't be talking about the 2020 election. That should be off the table. Let's, quote, move forward into 2022, 2024. Why do you believe it's so important to continue to bring up and talk about the 2020 election?
Well, a couple things. One, in our film Rigged, and people can stream it anytime, anywhere. We've already had 59 different countries download this film and stream this film. It's actually quite exciting since it's only been out a few days. But we really look hard into what President Trump says. He says the election was rigged or stolen. And I believe this film, Rigged, gives people the facts and evidence that they need, that they've been thirsting for the last 18 months, is to explain just how this election was rigged long before Election Day. How Mark Zuckerberg, spending $400 million of his own money, put his thumb on the scale, and not just globally how he did it, but we get into the specifics of how he did it in Georgia and in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, all across this country. And so it's a great cast. It's an unbelievable story. And I hope people get a chance to see it.
So you do believe that it's politically smart to tell the terrible aspects of the 2020 election, because if we don't say what they did, they'll just do it again.
Well, there's two things, Matt, and that's exactly right. One is they will do it again, and we'll get into that in 1 second. But secondly, this explains why President Trump says what he says. It's just not made up. This is now the facts and evidence that shows that 42,000 votes in 3 states, that's all it was. Otherwise, Donald Trump would be president today. And if it wasn't for $400 million, and just to put it into perspective, guys, the DNC spent $460 million in a 2-year cycle, 2019 and 2020. Staff, digital ads, overhead, office space, everything, all in $460 million in 2 years. Zuckerberg spent $400 million in about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Right. And it was solely focused on a get out the vote operation. It was solely focused on drop boxes and on mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, chasing ballots, voter registration in highly Democrat areas. That's why it's so important. And then to what Matt just said, if we don't tell people what they did, they're just going to do it again. And we know that because who wants to vote for higher gas prices and higher grocery prices and weakness at home and abroad and inflation, all of these problems, border crisis, crime crisis? The Democrats have nothing. They don't have anything to offer the American people. So this is one of the things that they have to do in order to be able to win elections.
Here you have $400 million. You have the potential misuse of all kinds of nonprofits. You have this question about whether money that's outside of government can be used to facilitate an election. So the real question with this great movie that we encourage everybody to download and watch, it's critical that we know the lessons to learn from 2020. The question, David, you worked on the Hill, you understand this world. What should Republicans do when they get these majorities in Congress vis-a-vis this misuse of the money in 2020 by Zuckerberg and his allies?
So when we win back the House and potentially the Senate this November, Matt, we have to have serious people run serious investigations. There needs to be deposition authority and discovery that are using subpoenas. The left has just militarized what Congress has done over the last 6 years of Donald Trump's his presidency and still to this day. And I got to tell you, we have to uncover what the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative was doing, what their intent was. We have to figure out what Mark Zuckerberg knew. We have to figure out what David Plouffe did. We have to figure out these 501c3s, who was giving them the orders. Were they misusing their IRS status? There are many.
So, David, think about this. We've got people sitting in jail who haven't been charged because of the activities around the Capitol on 1/6. But think about this. Some guy who doesn't have any power in society can sit in prison for a year, but you can spend $400 million and you don't even get asked to testify?
Hey, Matt, if you give over $5,600 right? Ask Congressman Fortenberry. Okay, they'll come after you for the slightest infraction. But Mark Zuckerberg can spend $400 million in the dead of the night. No one knows what he's doing, and no one's held accountable. I got to tell you, if I'm a Republican, I'm running on that issue, on accountability and on transparency.
Great point. So, David, you had a great event down in Mar-a-Lago. The president got to watch the movie. What was his reaction?
You know, it's funny. You know, I sat there next to him, and I actually watched him watching the movie as opposed to watching the movie because I just wanted to see his reaction to things. And it was quite remarkable. And when the film was over, and he was animated throughout the film, he couldn't believe what he was watching and hearing. But when the film was over, you know, he turned to me, he stood up and he said, you know, this is really sad. It's really sad and depressing what they did, and that nobody believed me, and that this film is even necessary. He said, everybody needs to see this film to know that what I've been saying about the election being rigged for the last 18 months was true, and that these are and what I tell him is this is the facts and evidence. Finally, it's not about voting machines or algorithms. We don't have the evidence for anything else, but we do have the evidence for this. And this people have to be held accountable. And let me just say this: 17 states. If this was okay to do, guys, if this was okay to do, why have 17 states passed laws to outlaw Zuckerberg-style private funding after this past election? And 12 of those states, the governors have signed it into law. 5 of them, with Democrat governors, have vetoed those bills. And that's North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Why? Because they need to do it again. This is their only way to win.
Hey, you know, David, the bright side is I always say we know there are more of us than there are of the socialists. You know how I know that? Because if they were going to win anyway because they have more numbers, you wouldn't cheat. The fact that they cheated so extensively shows you, it actually gives us hope that if we'll stand up and stop allowing this to happen, and if people will be forced to follow the law, and if judges will do their job, we can still take back the country.
I totally agree with that, but let me just say this. We got caught off guard.
Yeah.
Okay? We got caught off guard. We had a presidential campaign and the RNC, fundamentally the organization that does this, right? Voter registration and election day operations. And we were kind of caught off guard because I think we were looking for certain things and not around the corners that we need to be able to see around. And so this time in the midterms, there's no overriding campaign. So it has to be really the RNC who does it. And we need to have a vibrant election day operation. We need to be in court before election day, finding the weaknesses and litigating now over the summer, over the fall, before we get to election day, to make sure and have the battery of lawyers. Look, Mark Elias, we talk about this stuff all the time, guys. Mark Elias and his people, they sit around every day strategizing on how to beat us, how to use the courts, friendly judges, and litigation to do harm to the Republican Party every day. We have to do a better job, 1, defending that, and 2, being on offense.
Great point. We all agree. I think it's sad that Mark Elias, they ran circles around the presidential campaign and the RNC. It was an embarrassment. And, you know, you and I were both in there watching how they could not pull together a post-election legal operation that was effective in any way. So, you know, this is why I think there's so much on the proactive side we can get done. David Bossie, everybody's got to go out and watch this movie. We're going to promote it here on CPAC Now. It's called Rig, the Zuckerberg-funded plot to defend Donald Trump. Congratulations on this.
Hold on. I got to criticize you.
What?
To defeat Donald Trump.
What did I say?
Defend.
Jeez. Sorry, I'm moving so fast. No, we're defending Donald Trump. They're trying to defeat Donald Trump. Thanks, sweetie. Thanks for making sure I didn't make a mistake.
By the way, nobody would have heard that, Matt.
That's because I talk so fast. It's the Cuban in me. I got to tell you.
She was talking English, so that's good.
So go to rig2020.com. Stream this film on any device, anywhere in the world that you are listening to this broadcast. And It's important for you to get the facts and evidence so you can tell your friends, your family, your neighbors why Donald Trump was right about it and to make sure it never happens again.
Thanks for producing this great film, David Bossie.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.